It stings in a unique way when your girlfriend acts like you're invisible, even though you're sitting right across from her, a quiet kind of shame that starts as a nagging annoyance and swells into something you can't stomach once the truth hits you. That evening, I uncovered what was really going on, and I made damn sure Eliza would remember it forever. Her name's Eliza, and for the last 6 months, I was convinced she was the greatest thing to ever come into my life. She was sharp, had a killer sense of humor, and could turn any moment into a wild ride just by being herself. When we first got together, she was all in, cracking up at my dumb jokes, gazing at me like I was the only guy who mattered in the whole world. But over the past few weeks, something shifted, like a switch had flipped. At first, it was little stuff. Her phone always flipped face down when we hung out, or the way she seemed checked out, her mind wandering off to God knows where. I'd be in the middle of a story, pouring my heart out, and she'd just give a half-hearted nod, her eyes darting to her phone like she was expecting some life-changing news. Then the texting started getting out of hand. At first, I let it slide. Everybody peeks at their phone during a meal now and then, don't they? But with Eliza, it wasn't casual. She was practically married to that screen. I'd sit there, watching her type away, a little smirk creeping across her face at whatever she was reading, barely tossing me a glance like I was just background noise. That's when I started connecting the dots, and let me tell you, it wasn't adding up to anything good. She wasn't chatting with a buddy or firing off work emails. She was hiding something big. And that night at dinner, I finally put the pieces together. We'd gone to this fancy restaurant, the kind with soft lighting that makes everything feel warm and close, like you're in your own little world. I picked it hoping we could get back to how things used to be, just the two of us, no distractions. But the second we sat down, Eliza was somewhere else entirely. She hardly glanced at the menu, let alone at me. Her phone, though. It was blowing up like a slot machine. I kept an eye on her, noticing how she angled the screen just out of my view, her fingers flying across it like she was deep in a secret chat she didn't want me to catch. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. She was texting some other guy. I could have called her out right there in the middle of the restaurant. I could have reached over, yanked the phone out of her hands, and demanded to know what the hell was going on. But what's the point in blowing up like that? Eliza thought she could play me for a fool right to my face, so I decided to flip the script in a way she'd never see coming. As I sat there, watching her ignore me while she grinned at her phone, something in me broke, not in a yelling and screaming kind of way, but in a cold, clear-headed one. I wasn't just pissed off, I was over it. Over being the oblivious boyfriend, over acting like I didn't see her tilting her phone away from me, over pretending I wasn't losing a battle for her attention that I'd been fighting for weeks. She thought she was smooth, that I wouldn't pick up on the way her mouth twitched into a smile at whatever message she'd just gotten, or how she'd tuck her hair behind her ear, the same little move she always did when she was flirting up a storm. But I noticed every damn thing. I could have leaned across the table and said, "Who's got you so hooked?" just to watch her squirm and spit out some weak excuse. I could have grabbed her phone and demanded to know who she was so cozy with. But that would have just led to her dodging, lying, and trying to turn it back on me. So, I cooked up a better idea instead that I leaned back in my chair, flipping through the menu like everything was fine and dandy. But in my head, I was already laying the groundwork for what was coming next. If Eliza thought she could make a fool of me by texting some other dude right under my nose, I was gonna make sure she got a dose of her own medicine, and I wanted the whole restaurant to see it. When the waiter swung by, I flashed him a grin and said, "Hold up, before we get to ordering, I've got a little something special in mind." Eliza didn't even glance up from her phone, too wrapped up in whatever was on that screen. The waiter gave me a courteous nod. "Sure thing, sir. What's your request?" I shot a quick look at Eliza, who was still clueless that she'd just walked into the most awkward dinner of her life. I kept my grin steady and looked at the waiter. "I want to get a special dessert for my girlfriend here," I said, my voice cool as a cucumber. "Something real one of a kind." The waiter's eyebrow ticked up, clearly curious. "What are we thinking?" I pulled out my phone, already armed with exactly what I needed. Eliza might have been sneaky, but she wasn't perfect. I'd caught a glimpse of a name in one of her notifications when she tilted her phone just a smidge too far my way. That tiny slip was all it took. A quick scroll through social media, a bit of detective work, and boom, I had him. His name was Leo, and his profile made it crystal clear he wasn't just some old pal. I glanced back at the waiter, my smile never wavering. "Let's do a cake," I said, with a custom message on it. The waiter whipped out his notepad, pen at the ready. "Sounds good. What's the message?" I locked eyes with Eliza as I said the words, waiting for her to finally snap out of her phone trance and sense something was up. "Write this, hope Leo's having a great dinner too." Eliza was still lost in her own world, but that was about to change real quick. I watched the waiter jot down my order without missing a beat, no questions asked, just a polite smile before he headed off to the kitchen. Eliza, meanwhile, was still glued to her phone, so deep in her chat with Leo that she hadn't noticed a single thing. She had no clue she was about to star in the most embarrassing moment of her life. I let the silence hang, pretending to scan the menu, acting like this was just another night out. Truth is, my pulse was racing, not from being nervous, but from the thrill of what was coming. I couldn't wait to see her face when she realized her dirty little secret was out in the open. Eventually, she set her phone down, probably figuring she'd ignored me long enough to raise red flags. She flashed me a quick, sugary smile, like she hadn't been texting another guy the whole damn time. "Sorry, babe," she said, all casual, sliding her phone beside her plate. "Just some work stuff." Work stuff. She really thought I was dumb enough to buy that. I nodded, keeping my cool. "All good," I said, my tone steady as a rock. "Everything all right?" She stretched her arms out, letting out a fake, dramatic sigh. "Yeah, just some nonsense I'll deal with later. Let's just have a good time tonight." "Have a good time?" Oh, I was about to have the time of my life. The food showed up, and for the next 20 minutes, I played it smooth as silk. I asked her about her day, let her go on about how swamped she was, and acted like I hadn't already cracked the code on her lies. Every so often, I caught her sneaking a glance at her phone, fighting the urge to check it. She was trying to seem like she was all there with me, but I could tell, her head was somewhere else, with him, and then, the big moment rolled in. The waiter strolled back, carrying a stunning dessert, a decadent chocolate cake, decked out with fancy icing swirls. It was a showstopper, but the real kicker wasn't the cake, it was the message scrawled across it in smooth, flowing cursive, "Hope Leo's having a great dinner too." The instant that plate touched the table, Eliza's whole vibe changed. Her fake, sugary smile locked up like a rusty hinge. Her eyes flicked to the cake, then to me, then back to the cake, her brain clearly struggling to process what she was seeing. She blinked hard, her jaw dropping just a bit, completely at a loss for words. I kicked back in my seat, soaking in the moment as the truth started to hit her like a freight train. The restaurant was hushed, but the air around our table crackled with tension, like a storm about to break. Eliza's face went white, her fingers clutching the table's edge like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "What the hell is this?" she mumbled, her voice just loud enough to carry a few feet. I tilted my head, playing dumb. "Just dessert," I said, all relaxed. "You're into chocolate, right?" Her eyes got wide, panic creeping in. "Theo," I held up a hand, cutting her off with a grin. "Go on," I said, "read it nice and loud for me." Eliza swallowed hard, her hands shaking as she stared at that cake, her mind probably spinning like a hamster wheel, searching for some excuse, some way to wiggle out of this mess. But she was cornered, and there was no escape. Folks at nearby tables started to pick up on the drama, sneaky side eyes, hushed murmurs, the clink of forks slowing down as people leaned in to catch the show. Eliza's breaths came quick and shallow. "This ain't funny," she whispered, her voice sharp and low. I leaned in closer. "Oh, I'm laughing my ass off." She shot me a death glare, her cheeks burning with panic. "We're in a damn restaurant," she hissed, keeping her voice down. "Yup," I nodded, "we sure are. Kinda like how you were texting some other guy right in my face in this same restaurant." Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Game over. Eliza just sat there, frozen like a deer in headlights, her eyes bouncing between me and the cake that had just blown her cover. Her fingers gripped the table so tight her knuckles went pale, like she was trying to anchor herself to reality, but it was way too late for that. The damage was done. I could see it all over her face, the fear, the desperation, the silent begging for this to be some kind of bad dream. But it was real, all right. And to top it off, people were staring. The low whispers from nearby tables had grown into outright chatter. Some diners tried to play it cool, sneaking glances, others didn't bother hiding their gawking. The couple at the table next to us looked like they were eating this drama up with a spoon, practically grinning at the chaos. Eliza swallowed again, her voice shaky and barely above a whisper. "Theo, come on," I raised an eyebrow, leaning back. "Come on, what?" Her breaths were all over the place, her fingers twitching near her phone like she was thinking about snatching it and bolting. Instead, she plastered on a fake, tight-lipped smile, trying to take back control of the situation. "This is stupid," she muttered, her tone a far cry from the flirty, lovey-dovey act she'd been putting on all night. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." I let out a quiet laugh, shaking my head. "Nah, Eliza, you set this stage the moment you decided to sit here at dinner, texting another man while I'm right across from you." Her face turned a deep shade of crimson, and this time, it wasn't just embarrassment, it was rage. She was scrambling now, trying to find a way to flip this around, to paint me as the crazy one. "You don't even know what you're talking about," she snapped, her voice dropping into a biting whisper. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." I cocked my head to the side. "So, you're saying you weren't texting this Leo guy?" Her whole body twitched at the name, a dead giveaway that I'd hit the nail on the head. I flashed a smug grin. "Yeah, figured as much." Eliza let out a wobbly breath, her brain clearly scrambling for some kind of cover story. "He's just a buddy," she blurted out. I couldn't help but let out a short, bitter chuckle that made her eyes go wide. She knew she'd lost the upper hand, and there was no getting it back. "Just a buddy," I echoed, leaning in closer. "That's why you've been acting shady for weeks, flipping your phone face down, smirking at your screen while I'm sitting here like a damn fool." I nodded toward the cake. "Guess I should ask the waiter to pull up a chair for Leo, right? Since he's such a great pal." Eliza's breaths came faster, her body stiff as a board, her hands balling into tight fists. "You're acting like a damn kid," she snapped, her words slicing through the air. "This is embarrassing." I nodded slowly, locking eyes with her. "You're damn right it is," I said, my voice steady. "But it's only embarrassing for you." Eliza sucked in a sharp breath, her eyes starting to shimmer. For a fleeting moment, I thought she might break down, not out of genuine regret, but because she'd been caught red-handed. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "Can we just go somewhere quiet and hash this out?" I raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Oh, now you're all about keeping things private." I pointed at her phone. "That's rich, considering you didn't give a damn about privacy when you were texting him right in my face." She let out a frustrated huff, her cool girl act crumbling completely. "I can't believe you're doing this to me," she muttered, her voice low and venomous. That got another laugh out of me. "I ain't doing nothing to you, Eliza," I said, calm as ever. "You brought this all on yourself." Then, I did the smartest thing I could have done. I reached for my wallet, dropped a couple of bills on the table, and got to my feet. Eliza's head whipped up, her eyes wide with pure panic. "Hold on, where the hell are you going?" I gave her a sly grin. "Dunno. Maybe I'll go find a meal with someone who actually gives a damn about me." I nodded at the cake. Have fun with your dessert. With that, I turned and strolled out, leaving Eliza alone at the table, surrounded by curious whispers, prying eyes, and the cold, hard evidence of her own betrayal staring her down. I walked out of that restaurant without a single glance back, no wavering, no doubts, just the sweet satisfaction of knowing Eliza had finally gotten exactly what she had coming. The moment I stepped into the night, the crisp air washed over me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Back inside, I could picture it clear as day, Eliza still parked at that table, her cheeks flaming with shame as the weight of every bad choice she'd made came crashing down like a ton of bricks. She'd spent the whole dinner acting like I was invisible, like I was just some extra in her story while she texted Leo, like I wouldn't catch on. Well, now she was the one left in the dust that I'd only made it a few steps down the sidewalk when my phone started going off like crazy. It was Eliza. I grinned to myself, right on cue. I let it ring, then ignored another call, and another after that. Then came the flood of texts. Eliza, where'd you go? Eliza, Theo, come on, can we just talk this out? Eliza, that wasn't fair. You made me look like an idiot in front of everybody. Eliza, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It's not what you think. That last message. I couldn't help but laugh. Not what I think. She'd been glued to her phone, smirking at it, sneaking texts to another guy while I sat right there across from her. I'd put her own shady behavior on blast in front of a whole restaurant, but somehow, I was the one overreacting. I didn't bother replying. There was nothing left to say, that cake had said it all. Instead, I cut her off completely, blocked her number, her social media, every single way she could try to worm her way back into my life. Done. Eliza made her bed the moment she thought she could disrespect me to my face, and now she had to lie in it. The fallout? Man, the next few days were wild. Word of that restaurant showdown spread like wildfire. Turns out, when you call someone out in front of a packed dining room, folks can't stop talking about it. Buddies started hitting me up, like, yo, did you really bust Eliza with a cake? People who were there that night spilled the tea to others, who passed it on, until it seemed like our whole crew knew the story. And Eliza? She was toast. She tried to do some damage control, spinning tales about how I set her up, how I was just looking for a reason to dump her, how I made a mountain out of a molehill. But her story had a fatal flaw, that cake was real. People saw it with their own eyes. Some even snapped photos. A pal sent me a fuzzy pic from someone's Instagram story, Eliza at the table, face beet red, staring down at a cake that screamed her cheating in fancy cursive. No way she could talk her way out of that. Her whole perfect girl act came crashing down in one night. Where am I now? It's been a couple of months since that evening, and I'm doing better than ever. Eliza? She's history. Word on the street is she tried jumping back into the dating game, but her rep tagged along like a bad shadow. People knew what she pulled. She went from the girl everybody looked up to the one they gossiped about over drinks. Me? I've moved on. I'm seeing someone new, someone who actually respects me, who doesn't clutch her phone like it's a state secret when we're together, someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm fighting for scraps of her attention. The best part? When we go out to eat, she's looking at me, not some screen. What I took away from all this, when someone shows you their true colors, don't look the other way. If they're hiding their phone, always distracted, or treating you like you're just background noise, open your eyes. Ignore those red flags, and you're setting yourself up to be the chump. Me? I'm done letting anyone play me like that ever again. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let's chop it up below.